Hello and welcome to this second video introducing you to Academic Plan Record in Campus Solution. And the first one we covered the standard tabs that are provided with Campus Solutions, but we're also going to look at now additional tabs that have been added for UON purposes. Okay, so I'm going to page across. Now the first one we have is Academic Plan Extension tab. Now this is a kind of a higgledy-piggledy collection of additional records that are being used mainly for admissions purposes, but do need to be you do need to be familiar with what they're for. Okay, so we've got in here, we've got a core area and we've got delivery mode. So here we've got blended distance learning and in-person. This field needs to be populated, but it's mainly going to be used to record or identify distance learning programs. Okay. Then we've got academic load, so full-time, part-time or both. If the plan's going to have both, that needs to be recorded here. This feeds into admissions. Course length is for HECES purposes, so we're not going to populate that at the moment, and that may be something that you SPP use. Then we've got total units, the total number of credits that will be completed as part of the plan to achieve the degree that's specified with the plan. The campus and the location, so the campus-specific campus, if that makes sense. So for us, it's Jubilee. Let's have a look at the other ones. There's a whole range. We've got Derby, City Hospital, SB, etc. And then we've got some China and Malaysia ones as well. And that's used for, I believe that's used as part of the visa process. Okay, we've got a number of fields here that are used to capture School of Education PGCE specific information. I think we'll provide additional guidance on this, but you've got information about the type of PGCE program, the strand within that, primary, secondary, the subject and the sub-subjects. This is all information that education currently record in their own system for a plan, and we do need to capture it here. And similarly for health sciences, we have, again, specialisms for their nursing plans. We've got required training time, max time to qualify and train. So this is very specific for a subset of health sciences plans that will need to be populated when you get one of those plans coming through. Then we've got a range of admissions fields here, which admissions will need to provide additional information on as to how they're populated and exactly what they're for. But we've got things like ELQ exemption, whether an occupational health check is required, whether it's a placement requirement, DBS requirement, etc. So it's for their purposes to capture additional information. And similarly, we've got a section on CELI and on partnership plans, which again will need to get additional information and guidance on how and when they need to be populated. Let's move on to the QAA information. So this is additional fields that have been added to the plan to capture what we would normally term in Saturn as program specification information. So I'm going to run through these now, but there will also be a video where I look at the Saturn page and then match the field in Saturn to the relevant field in Campus Solutions, if that makes sense. So QAA admissions. So we've got fee status. So this is something that will need to be determined by probably SPP as the process is at the moment to say what type of fee status or stati will be used for this plan. So we've got Home UK, or we've got UK International or UK EU. So we will need these, I believe, will need to be attached so we can determine the type of applicant that can apply for this plan. But again, we need additional guidance from admissions on this. And similarly for grade requirements, where we've got achieved and predicted type of grades they need to satisfy admissions requirements. And then we've got 3 extra tabs there, all of which are capturing additional admissions information. All but about 4 of these fields don't exist in Saturn, so they're new fields. And again, admissions will need to provide additional information as to how they should be populated, where the data is coming from, and when it should be populated. So I'm not too worried about this bit at the moment. I'm more interested in the other QAA tabs, these 2 here, which reflect the information that's currently recorded in Saturn. So let's go into QEA, Quality and Regulations, and run through this. So we've got here accreditation details. So when a plan has accreditation, we need to record it in the system. So we look up the accreditation body, and here we can search on description. So I think we're going to need some information to give you a full list of all the accrediting bodies in here and what their codes are. But we've got things like IMEC and IET and RCVS, which is a VETS one, etc. So you select your accrediting body there, then you select your type. So we've got different, this is accredited by the chartered, blah, 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 to give you status as a registered architect. Now, the way this is set up isn't very helpful in that we've got the description, but obviously it's a very short description, so it's very difficult to tell what the accreditation is. So when this is added, we'll need to provide, a full printed list or a Word document to say, this is the full detail of the accreditation, and this is the code you need to use, because I don't think it's going to be possible to do it from this lookup description field. The accreditation codes, this automatically gets added when you choose this, and this is the key information set or KISS code that we use in the KISS submission for HESA. Okay, then we've got a valid from and to dates for that accreditation and whether it's got a dependency on optional course choices by the student. Then we've got accreditation notes, so you can put free text information about the accreditations selected. Then we've got benchmark subjects. Unhelpfully at the moment, it's been given an incorrect title of business and management, which is actually a benchmark subject itself, but this is benchmark subjects. So when you need to attach these to a plan, you go in and you look up the relevant one and select it, and it will put in here, it will populate this further information, or you can populate this further information field to show more information about that benchmark subject. And these values represent or reflect the values that are currently used in Saturn. Okay, fallback awards. So this is two new fields that don't exist in Saturn. So we can select, let's say I'm doing a BSc ONS for chemistry. If we want to, we can go and put in here, undergraduate certificate or a diploma. But I think it's really going to be used where we've got something like a PGR and it's got a fallback of an MPhil, or if we got an MEng and it's got a fallback of a BEng, that sort of information. Okay, then we've got the course weighting. So this is the information which determines, used for degree calculation to see which stage of a plan, which percentage that contributes to the overall degree calculation. So here we've got part 1 and part 2. So you enter the stage, which is sort of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You enter the label you want to use for that stage. So stage 2, part 1. Stage 1 would have been qualifying year. Then you put your percentage in, and default credit block size. So this is the total credits that a student would take at that stage to complete that stage. So normally it's going to be 120 credits, as you would expect for an undergraduate, but it could be 180 for a master's, etc. Degree calculation model, which is generally going to be set to arithmetic mean, and we can put some notes here about the degree calculation model. Right, educational aims. No, let me just put you on pause while I sort this out. Right, where was I? Yes, we're going to look at the educational aims button at the bottom there. So this opens up another page to record all the information related to educational aims. This is probably going to be more relevant when I do the video comparing Saturn fields to campus fields, but we've got all the same fields from Saturn for educational aims: introduction, outline, description of the program, distinguishing features, further information. Marketing text is a new field, so this is to record text that can be used in the prospectus to describe that plan, because I believe this is something that's normally requested by marketing after the sort of business approval program spec process is finished. So it's trying to include that in the overall process rather than a later step. So that's what that's there for. Then we can indicate whether this plan should be published, the program spec should be published, and whether information for the plan should go to the online prospectus. And then down here we add our educational aims, and we just add in, click on plus buttons here to add in a new row for each educational aim, and then you can open this out and it gives you more space to see how that works. Okay, so that's educational aims. Supplementary regulations. So this is mainly about progression and information around award and assessment. Okay, so we've got, these are two new fields, I believe, assessment marking criteria, and then a URL to point you to further information on marking criteria. Then we've got a standard field, which is progression regulations. So that exists at the moment. Borderline criteria description. These are two new fields. So this is to say whether it's an exception or standard for borderline criteria, and then what information about that. And then down into a couple of standard fields already in Saturn, assessment award regulations and other regulations, and then notwithstanding regulations, a new field that was requested by a curriculum, and we'll need to provide information on what that's used for. Okay, so that's QEA quality and regulations. And then QEA learning outcomes. So this is where we detail our learning outcomes, and I think all the fields here are currently available in Saturn. So we've got the overview, assessment summary for all the learning outcomes, and the teaching and learning information for all the outcomes. And then we go down here, and this works a bit differently than it is in Saturn, because what we do is, let's say I want to put intellectual skills, and I select that from the type, put my introduction in, teaching and learning and assessment, general information, and then I add in my learning points. So I'm just going to do a little bit of a faff here. Okay. Now once I've done that and I want to add in some transfer skills, I click on the plus button at this level and it puts a new row in, and then I go and find transferable skills, and then I put my learning outcome points in. And if I click back, see, I go back to intellectual skills and the information there. So rather than having these as separate sections, they all come under the same section, but you just add a new row for each one. Okay, and that's it. Well, that's there was one more tab. So this is a Malaysia specific tab, and this is used to record information for one of Malaysia reports, the government report, and there's information here to populate that. So this is going to just be used by Malaysia. And that covers the additional tabs that we've added to the academic plan table. So the next video we'll look at, this is the field in Saturn. Where will I find this field in the academic plan table?